all these rivers upstream flow into sales comp, territory, quota, comp. Given all the experience you have across different industries and the work that you've done within DocuSign, what do you believe is the right order of building out and executing on this planning?
The right order, and then the order you have to operate in, and not one and the same necessarily every year. But I think sticking to territory, quota, comp makes a ton of sense, because you want to segment your book of business and all of your customers up front to then be able to design around. So I think starting with segmentation makes the most sense. Now, we were actually forced to start with comp and follow up with segmentation decisions and quota decisions. We were close-knit, but we were making a large kind of transformational change for the company around our segments and a product-led growth strategy versus our direct channel and how we were going to leverage both. And those decisions weren't quite ready when we needed to be able to redefine our comp plans. So what we had to do is build in a lot more assumptions and guardrails. So we assumed a certain amount of account potential and the different directions that quota might go in. How high it might be if we were going to goal people on metric A over metric B. We had to build in different scenarios, but as I mentioned, guardrails, they were really important as well. So depending on where we ended up and who was going to be in the mix, things like determining adding higher floors for things. So for our SQOs, for example, because irrespective of then what happened with the segmentation and where these reps were going to be working, we understood that, you were only going to have an SQO qualify if it met X as an absolute value. Drove a little bit of gaming when launched, but generally speaking, it's allowed us to build a plan ready for the ambiguity of not necessarily knowing how the customers were going to be broken out. The other guardrail that we went with is also kind of adding in some mid-year language around reopening the comp plans for definition and design. And we let the reps that might be impacted in that way know that might happen and put them on initially a semi-annual plan and said, like, for the first 6 months, we're going to operate this way. We're going to then look and reassess potentially what H2 needs to look like. And they were actually very accepting of that because they knew about it up front, to that concept of transparency. And that's helped build that trust, but also given us some ability to pivot when we experience some of the unintended consequences. But generally, got to build in adjustable levers and have some scenarios in the back of your pocket to be able to kind of pivot when you're going through that level of change. And if you are going to operate outside of the territory quota comp linearity, you may have to revisit the comp once you've got territory and quota in place. But ideally, you're starting with territory and moving through it in that fashion.